I'm PJ Capozzi, Superintendent of Schools for Meridian CUSD 223.
And I'm John Smith, the President of the school board.
What we are intending to do tonight is just talk through the agenda and what we anticipate to happen at the board meeting. We started last year sending out a recap of each board meeting in an email to our community members and to the parents of our students, and we thought perhaps doing it in an interview style where we speak to someone, we could post it on our website, also on Facebook, and potentially YouTube might be a way to connect with more people. So we're giving that a shot, and we're about to walk through the agenda that we anticipate for the July 30th school board meeting.
And just as an interjection, last year we also started viewing administrator and directors reports via BrainShark, so we've been started using some of that kind of technology within the board for presentations prior to, and then those presentations are also posted on our website. So again, we're trying to do a little bit more of this to make it a little bit more interactive and user-friendly to the community.
Absolutely. I think the thrust of it is that we realize that board meetings are important for our community. However, giving up an hour or 2 hours on a Thursday night is somewhat difficult. So the more that we can relive the experience for our community, the better. And so let's get started. So what we'll see tonight in terms of we'll have our typical board member and board meeting actions that start the meeting, and that's as simple as taking a roll call and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and then approving consent agenda items. And so what consent agenda items are just basically your regular business that you take care of, items that will generally pass through, the board would approve without needing much discussion. And so that's generally, for lack of a better term, paying our bills and then our simple HR needs. So we start off every meeting that way and goes fairly quickly. The presentation tonight, every month we generally have an administrative presentation. This is from OCEC. OCEC is a great partner of ours and allow us to provide support and services for students that we would not be able to financially fund if we did not work through a cooperative. So their director, Mike Noble, will be here for a presentation to our board tonight. After that part goes through, the board will be able to ask any questions that they have. From there on, I'll go with my report. And so my report details largely the highlights of what's taking place within the district so that the board has a full understanding of what is taking place and what I'm doing with my time. Now, my communication with the board is different than with the rest of the community, so they largely know many of the things we're going to talk about, but it's an opportunity to say it in public session and also for them to ask questions publicly to dig deeper. So some of the items which I'll highlight for you that we'll go over this month, two in particular. And the reason I'm going to highlight those two are because they both deal with money. First one is health, life, safety. Health, life, safety is something we're mandated through the state to do, and we're investigating what areas of need that we currently have in the district. And so in the coming months, this will be a large focus of our board meetings, truly from now until December. But we have three major decisions to work through currently. The first one is to work through our architect to figure out what needs to be done and then decide whether we're going to use a traditional process of completing that work or we would go through a performance bid process. And so that's a huge decision for us. The second issue is determining exactly what needs to be done because we're quite certain they're going to tell us more work needs to get done than we have access to money. So there's decisions in terms of what we will get done. And then third is whether we'll use a financial advisor or just a bond underwriter. And we'll talk about that tonight. And my recommendation at this point is to use a financial advisor and to use PMA for that. So we'll talk about the financial implications of that and why it helps us be more fiscally responsible and safer in terms of using a reputable agency such as PMA.
Just a small bit of interjection there. This is a committee that Mr. Capozzi has, and there are two board members on the committee. First of all, the committee is Mr. Capozzi, Mr. Mickle, the Buildings and Ground Director, and then we have two board members. And the reason for having the board members on it is so they can oversee or get too detailed into the kind of work that's being done, but it just makes the conversation back to the board much smoother, much more free-flowing, because they have already kind of lived through some of the detailed work that Mr. Capozzi and Mr. Mickle have done with the outside sources that they've been using for research.
The second item, which I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, is as many of you guys know in the community, we own over 138 acres of land of which we lease out each year. And so one of the things when Mr. Smith came on the board and when I came to the district, wanted to make sure that the process of leasing that out is extraordinarily transparent. So tonight I will present the documents that I intend to send to the media and to post on our website to the board, get their approval, and we'll start that process. The lease would start on January 1, 2016. So again, that would be another thing that we're going to see consistently on on the August and September agendas. Hopefully moving forward in September, we'd have a decision as to who that would be leased out to. Next thing we'll do is every month I give a year-to-date budget update, and so what that means is we have a budget in place, and I'll show how much we've spent compared to it and how much we've received from the state. So last year, after a ton of work and a ton of things that we didn't expect to happening that we had to spend money on, I'll be able to demonstrate to the budget that we still were under budget in terms of our expenditures, and we projected over a $400,000 deficit, and we ended up slightly over $150,000 deficit. So anytime you're in the red is not a good year. But compared to where we thought we were going to be, we're really pleased with that result.
And again, the budget is probably the single largest topic that this board has dealt with over the past couple of years, primarily because of the situation with the state and the funding that's gone through their current fiscal state, the state of the state, and the efforts that we do and Mr. Kaposi does, along with several other superintendents in the area, just keeping in touch with what's going on and coming in and out of Springfield. And so we always have a good finger on the pulse of what's going on, so we know and we're not caught flat-footed with any more detrimental news than might be forthcoming. But of late, we've gotten some good news, as Mr. Kaposi said, better off this year than we thought, and looking forward to next year. This is a topic that will consume this board for the balance of the year.
After we go through my report, there's some more just procedural items. We do notice this in communication, so if anyone sent thank yous or anything along that line or invited the board to something, we'll discuss that publicly. Then we also allow the public to make comment. After that, we get into unfinished business of this. In this case, this month we don't have any. So then we get into new business, and this is probably the largest new business section we've had here in the last several years. We have 10 items to act on tonight. The first being that we need to approve the athletic handbook for this year so that we can distribute it to parents. And so that they understand the athletic rules, regulations, and policies. One thing which I'm excited about is we've been able to partner with a student, a graduate student, and really try to get ahead of the curve in terms of concussion protocol testing. Anyone that follows professional sports know that concussions are a large issue that are discussed a lot, and it's coming down to the high school ranks, and we're able to kind of jump out ahead in terms of the service we can provide our students in our community right now. And this is something that we're excited about, that we will pilot in the fall and see where it takes us. We have a couple other just procedural things, a couple board policy issues that we have to update. A lot of the times if we say that it's a board policy issue but isn't too intense, it's largely just the legal support for whatever policy is in place has been amended, or there's been another piece of case law that supports it. So when they don't get much discussion, that's where it's at. Two other large items that we'll be discussing is this will be the unveiling of the FY16 budget. It's a really complex portion of what we do. So through social media, yesterday we sent out a couple of links that walk through so that the community can get the same presentation the board will get. And lastly, our high school staff and students did a wonderful job throughout the year investigating weighted grades. And this year we will finally basically take a year's worth of work and put it toward action tonight with a recommendation to approve weighted grades as we move forward.
A couple of things. Mr. Kaposi and I have both mentioned finances here a couple of times tonight. There is a finance committee, and Mr. Kaposi also just talked about the policy updates. There is a separate policy committee meeting, and I think it's important that the community understand that it's not just the monthly board meeting that board members come to. Every board member is required to be on at least one standing, or if not two standing committees within the board, and those are separate meetings that happen outside this hour and a half or 2 hour time frame on a monthly basis. So policy committee meeting, finance committee has done a lot of work over the last year. We have several other interest-based joint library. Again, just a number of other things that the board members are engaged in that require their time around this table but not tied to this meeting.
And after we get done with the new business, we go into board comments, which is an opportunity for the board to reflect on what's happening around them and what's important to them. So often we'll revisit either the board code of conduct or our strategic goals and just make sure that we are discussing and aligning our decisions with those. We then move into closed session. Closed session, there's laws pertaining as to what we can discuss in there. So largely when we're in closed session, we're dealing with contractual issues or discipline issues or things involving individual people that don't need to be discussed or we're not permitted to discuss for confidentiality reasons in a large open session. So we will have a closed session tonight. Outside of closed session, we anticipate that there'll be a couple actions. Most notably, we will look to approve some new administrator contracts. And the reason I really want to make light of this is that there will be 4 administrative contracts approved. It's important for the community to know that the compensation, the total compensation for all of those contracts will not exceed what it was the previous year. In 2 cases, the salary did not increase at all. In 1 case, salary increased, overall compensation decreased. And in the other case, it's a shared employee between ourselves and another entity, in which case the district did not put forward more money. So in our effort to continually be fiscally conservative and responsible, it was important that we communicate that. So I want to thank everyone that took the time to listen to this and watch this, and hopefully we did a good job of informing you of what we anticipate taking place during tonight's meeting. Obviously, can never truly predict the future, so if anything else happens, we'll make sure to include that in our update. But if you have any feedback as to whether this is a positive thing or a negative thing, please feel free to let Mr. Smith and myself know, and we'll do whatever we can to continue to be communicative and transparent to our community.
And my contact information is available through the district office or on the district website. And again, I would welcome any community member that would like to come in and sit in on a school board meeting to do so. Those dates are published well in advance, and they run very efficiently, very professionally, and very smoothly. So if you choose to come down, we welcome your attendance.